Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, wherever you are watching from. I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of Dad, Can We Talk? I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for joining. I thank you for watching. Just a quick second to thank everybody who watches for tuning in to Virtuous streams, period, for the other programs on the show, on the network, for From the Desk of the Apostle on Thursdays, for True Talks with Kim on Wednesdays, for Resiliency and Recovery, the comeback on Saturdays, and for the word with Reem on Sundays. Thank you all for tuning in and continuing to join. If you recall, on last week, I had my baby sister on, and a lot of you, commented and responded just about how much wisdom she has and how, for her age, she's so smart. And I had my father on and I had my sister on, and I just, for me, it's been a blessing. I can't begin to tell you what doing Dad Can We Talk has done for me personally in just my life and helping me come to terms with some issues that I've had, some things that I've struggled with. I don't know what it has done for you, but I just want to, like I said, I thank everybody for tuning in and watching and for just week after week just being here with me. I appreciate it greatly. It does not, believe me, it does not go unappreciated. My word for today is mindfulness. That's my word for today. It's mindfulness. And what I mean by mindfulness is just being aware of what you pour into your children, what you say to them, how you speak to them, how you deal with them, how you interact with them, just being mindful of those interactions, being aware, because, we get angry, we fly off the handle, we say things we don't mean, we, we're human, you know, we're human and things happen. And, a lot of times people speak before they think. And so things might get said or things might get done that you don't necessarily mean, but in the heat of the moment, people let things slip. And I'll tell you the story. I was actually in the store today. I was picking up groceries, and I watched this young mother. She had to be about my age, and I just watched her talk to her son. He was running around the store. He was being a kid. He was running around the store. He was getting into stuff, touching stuff. And she snapped on him. And I'm not going to repeat word for word what she said. But it just it hit me for a second because there was just so much anger in what she said. There was so much she was so angry with him. And I don't know if it was just anger at him, if it was anger that had been building over the day, if it was, she had finally just hit the point where this was, her son running around the store was her last frustration. But she said some things to him that I just had me stuck for a second, because there are some things that you should never say to a child. You should never, attempt to belittle, to make fun of, to 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 put them down and make them feel less than. Children are human beings in their own right. They're people in their own right. And it's just what it comes down to. Again, it's my word for the day is just mindfulness. You have to be aware of what you say to your children, because the thing about children that people don't know, this is probably cliche. You've probably heard somebody say this somewhere along the line, but they pick up on the habits of those around them. A parent, and I've said this before, is a child's first teacher. They soak, everything that you tell them is what they're going to believe. Everything that they see, hear, they take it all in. They absorb it all. I have a younger cousin, Lanaya, and she takes in everything. She absorbs everything. She will repeat everything. She's just so open to just receiving things, whether it be from TV, from her family, from what she like, her toys. She reads things sometimes. And so children are, they will attempt to emulate what they see. And I watched this mother, again, I can't repeat everything she said, but I watched her just say these things to her son, and I watched him cry. And whether you know it or not, as a parent, those things do stick with you. Those things do stick with the child. If I can, I'm always the first one to tell them myself. There are things that my parents have said to me over the years that stuck with me. They stuck with me. They were things that just kind of like, I looked at my mom, I looked at my dad, and I just went, how can you say those things to me? How can, is this how you really feel about me? Is that what you think of me? And I those things just there were and even now at my age, there are still some things that I catch myself just like thinking about. There are just moments, throughout my childhood where I'm going to be honest with you. As a child, I didn't always feel that everything came from a place of love. I didn't always feel that, and I'm not telling you nothing that I haven't told my parents. I'm not telling you nothing that I haven't discussed with them. But I didn't always believe like the punishment or the saying, whatever the case may be. I didn't always believe it was done out of love. And these moments in a child's life, whether you realize it or not, they do leave lasting impressions. They do leave moments that will, 10, 20 years down the line, they'll still be thinking about. I'm living proof of that. There are still moments in my childhood that they kind of, every time I get on to do this show, there are things that I relive. If I'm being completely honest with you, there are moments in my life that I relive, talking to you all and saying, and giving you my story, giving you my testimony. And there are, it kind of, I heal from it, but that doesn't make it any less painful to relive, if you understand what I'm saying. It doesn't make it, I can talk about these things now because I'm at a different place, but remembering them it's still painful to do. If I can, share with you, there was a time my mother, we were at a gas station, and there had been, I forgot exactly what happened. I believe the gas pump had gotten stuck in the car, or it had gotten stuck or pulled out of somewhere. And I was the one who noticed it. And I spoke up and I said, Dad, the pump, I think it's spilling. I think it's spilling all over the ground. And my mother got upset with me, and she turned around, and I can't remember everything that she said prior to the statement she made, but she was upset with me. She was angry with me. And she turned around and she looked at me and said, I bet if it had been your real dad, you would have said something. And I say all that to say, not that I'm angry with my mother or I'm still upset or I'm still holding on to that, but I say all that to say when she said that, I was about 10 years old. I'm 22 now. I was 10 years old. I had to be, I was maybe 11 or 12, 10, somewhere between 10 to 12. And that's something that I've never forgotten, that I've never, and these are just moments in my life that I tend to remember. So if you think that, your child brushes these things off or they just don't acknowledge them, they won't remember, it doesn't affect them, I'm here to tell you today it does. It affects them greatly. It doesn't, they don't forget these moments. Ultimately, these moments come to shape how they respond to things, how they interact with people, how, they become their, these moments shape their response, their trauma responses, to be honest. And, another moment in my life, I told you on a previous episode that I got into a fight with my father. And during that fight, I was everything but my name. I was everything but a child of God. And while that incident is more recent, that was about 3 years ago, and it's just, and I'm older now, but I do have so many stories of moments of lasting impressions that just, while I'm at a better place with my mother and my second dad and my father, and I'm at a better place with all of them, these are moments that I've had to think about. And again, I'm not telling you nothing that I haven't discussed with my family, nothing that I haven't, sat down and had real conversations with my parents about. I'm just telling you today that you have to be aware. You have to be so conscious of what it is that you tell your kids, what you pour into them, what feed their spirit. It's more than just, and I know, you're competing with, in certain situations, you're competing with what they learn at their other parents' house. You're competing with what they learn at school. You're competing with what they learn, out and about in the world with their friends. So I understand that there's a lot to combat to make room for what it is you have to teach them and what it is you have to show them, and what it is that you have to give them so that they're successful in life. So I understand that there are other elements that you have to fight against in order to properly raise your children. Don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is, being that you are your child's first teacher, you are largely responsible for shaping who they come out to be. If all you do is put your child down and tell them that they're this and that, and they ain't gonna be such, or they just like they no good such and such and such, if that's all you pour into them, that's what they will believe they are. You always hear, adults, other adults say things like, you know, oh, he's not a bad kid. He's impulsive. He's rambunctious. Oh, she's not a bad kid. She's just XYZ, whatever the case is. And so children believe what you tell them they are. They wholeheartedly believe what you tell them they are. When my mother used to say I was going to end up just like my father, that's, I wholeheartedly believe that. All right, if that's what I'm gonna be, that's what I'm gonna be. When my father used to tell me that, he would say, when he got angry with me, he would say things like, um, he would say things like, well, I bet. Oh man. He would say things like, well, I'm not your mother, and I'm not putting up with such and da 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 da. And I say all that to say that it's up to parents to become aware of what you pour into your children. You hear a lot of people talk about affirmations, and but that stuff works. I promise you that stuff works. I there's a video on social media that I run across every now and again. It's a little boy, and he's walking with his mother, and she's having him, or it might be his father, pardon me, but she's having him, his parent has him repeating these things about himself before he goes to school. And every time I see that video, I'm reminded that it's that those moments are important. Those moments are so important. When you become an adult, it's a different situation, because you're now at a point where you're equipped to decipher for yourself. One of my favorite sayings is, don't believe them when they say you're the greatest, because you'll believe them when they say you're the worst. So when you're an adult, that saying applies. You don't let anybody hype you up, and then you don't let anybody put you down when they're not feeling you. But as a child, you don't have that. You don't have those tools yet. You don't have that knowledge to discern, like, I don't really have to worry about that, or I'm not hearing that, because children, again, believe that they are what you say they are. They believe what you tell them about themselves. If you're going around telling your kid, you're bad, you're this, you're that's what they will believe they are. That's You will see their behavior change if you tell them if you pour that positivity into them. I'll share with you another story. There was a kid I went to high school with, and he liked to fight. He liked to, he was always in something. He was always doing something. Like, he was labeled, the troublemaker, the problem child. He was unruly. He was this, that, and the third. And I remember one day I happened to be in the counselor's office. We got a school counselor, and I happened to be in the school counselor's office. And he just asked him, he said, why do you, behave like this? Why do you act like this? What's the issue? And I'll never forget it. And he said, that's what they told me I am. That's that's literally word for word what he said. He said, that's what they told me I am. And that moment, like, clicked for me, because it's here you have a kid looking for somebody to tell him, you're a good kid. You can be better than this. This doesn't have to be you. But he had grown so accustomed to hearing people, from his parents to his teachers, everybody in his life up until that point had constantly told this kid, like, you're you're everything, you're disrespectful, you're ungrateful, you're uh you're unruly, you're a troublemaker, you're no good, you're always up to no good, you never do what you're supposed to, you ain't gonna be such and such. That's all he had heard all his life up until that point. That's all anybody had anything to say to him. When he did something positive, he didn't get there was no reaction. There was nobody. I remember we got our report cards one day, and he was so happy. He was so happy. He looked at his grades. He had been really trying hard, and he was ecstatic. You couldn't tell him nothing. He had worked hard for those grades. And I remember he came into school the next day, and it looked like somebody had killed his dog or shot his best friend. He was deflated, and I asked him. I was like, "Yo, like you were so, you were so live yesterday. Every life was great yesterday. What happened?" And he said, "Yo, I showed my parents my grades, and they just kind of blew me off. They just was like, they spoke that negativity in him, saying things like, it's good for right now, but you'll be back to your old ways. You the thing is that the issues that start in a child will manifest as an adult. They will manifest as an adult. You hear all these stories of inmates who come from trouble homes, of drug addicts who come from trouble homes, and you listen to their stories, and you can see in listening to these stories where they went wrong, where life went wrong for them. I used to go with my dad to a group home for boys. We used to go, I want to say every Saturday, and he would go and he would mentor the boys, and we would hang out with them, and we would listen to them. And the stories they would tell me, the things they would say, like they had, unfortunately, and which is something, I didn't, as a child, I didn't always put my situation in perspective, but going to visit these guys really put my life in perspective for me. And they would say, like, when I got the chance to really talk to them, and they would tell me, like, yo, my mom said I wasn't going to be XYZ. My mom said I wasn't, you know what I mean by XYZ. I ain't got to say it. You know what I'm saying. My mom said I was no good. My family didn't want me. My parents didn't, and it's just so important that you understand that you as a parent have the opportunity to save your child from that. As much as you might not think, they will believe what you tell them about themselves. They will believe it. They will digest it. They will consume it. They will think about it and replay it over in their heads over and over and over and over, because those words, those actions will leave long lasting impressions. They will, I guarantee you, they will leave long lasting impressions. I was 19, 20, 21, 18, 17, thinking about things that had happened all throughout my life, all throughout my childhood, moments that hurt me, that just completely, like, I couldn't do nothing but just look. Parents, you are your child's first teacher. You are their doorway into the world. You are the ones who have to teach them how to love themselves, how to give them that you are the ones responsible up to a certain point for how they view themselves, how they look at themselves, how they love themselves, how they talk to themselves, how they treat themselves. A lot of times, parents don't think about it, or they don't consider it, but the offhand jokes, the remarks, the constant, you don't view it as, it's innocent picking and teasing, but at the same time, you keep telling that joke, people will begin to believe that about themselves. There's no, that's a common, that's a psychological fact. You keep telling the same joke, you keep saying the same thing over again, you will start to believe that. You hear people say all the time, like, I don't make self-deprecating jokes. Don't talk bad. Don't think bad about yourself. And there's a reason behind that. And the reason is, after a certain point, you will begin to believe those things about yourself. You will begin to internalize and believe that that's what you are. You have some people, it takes them a lifetime to get to the point where they realize they have to speak it over themselves. I have a habit. Every day I get up, I look in the mirror, and I tell myself, I love you. Every single day I get up, while after I'm done brushing my teeth, washing my face, whatever I need to do in the morning, I look in the mirror and I tell myself, I love you. And I tell myself that because for so long I struggled with my own self-esteem, with the way I viewed myself, with the way I looked at myself. And so we don't, oftentimes we don't think that, and I'm not saying that, you, don't get me confused. Don't get it confused, because I like a joke as much as the next person. I like a joke as much, it's funny. We roast each other. We joan on each other. We crack jokes on each other. I understand all that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about when you have a child that doesn't really know how to interact with the family, doesn't really know how to, they hold themselves up in their room, and then when they come out of their room, you hit them with the, oh, look who decided to join us today. I'm talking about when your son is, he's struggling because, hey, I don't really know how to talk to girls, and sometimes he doesn't need a joke, he just needs, I've been there before. I understand what it is. When your daughter is struggling with, how she views herself, if she doesn't know if she's beautiful, maybe it's not the time to reinforce that idea in her head that she's ugly, but it's just a time to be supportive and be positive and to speak those encouraging words that will give her the confidence she needs to love herself. And so I'm not saying it because I'm not calling anybody out. I'm not saying y'all are bad parents. I'm not saying that, go out and hit a 180 today and you got to be positive all the time and don't crack jokes and you got to be. That's not what I'm saying. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there has to be those words of encouragement. There has to be those positive, because whether you believe it or not, Bible scripture says life and death is in the power of the tongue. And as your child's doorway into the world, as their doorway into life, as their guide through life, you have the power in your tongue to speak that life over them, to speak that positivity over them, to speak, that fulfilling, those fulfilling words into them, that just let them know that, you not only that you love them, but that you are, you believe in them, that you are there for them, that you will, because the greatest thing I've ever been able to do in my life is go home. And I don't just mean home, but home to my mom, but go home to my family, go home to, to see everybody, because I know that I'll get that life spoken into me. I'll get that word spoken into me. I'll get that uplifting, that encouragement spoken into me, and that's what it all comes down to. And again, I was just watching, I just couldn't help but stop and look at this mom in the grocery store, because she just, and he burst into tears and he was crying. And whether you know it or not, whether she knows it or not, that's something that's going to stick with him. It might have been a heat of the moment thing for mom. It might have been she was having a bad day. It might, but again, mindfulness, mindful of what you speak into your children, mindful of what you put in their heads, of what you put in the atmosphere around them. I cannot tell you how many times as a kid, my mother and my father prayed over me. They hit me with the blessed oil across the forehead. They encouraged me when I needed it. And not to say that, again, we had those moments. We had those moments where they weren't mindful of what they said or what they did or how they acted. And we had those moments, but we also had the moments where they prayed over me, they uplifted me, they let me know that they loved me. And I say all this again, I say all this to say that you just have to be mindful of what it is you tell your children, mindful of what it is that you put into them, that you feed their soul with. Just be mindful. All of that negativity will take root. If that's all you speak over your child, all that you give them, it will take root. It will become what they believe about themselves. It will become what they feel about themselves, how they view themselves. They will believe that. They will internalize that, believe that, and that's what they will think that they are. So I beseech you today, just be mindful. Be mindful, be mindful, be mindful. Mindfulness. Mindfulness. Be mindful. I thank all of you for tuning in today. I thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Like I said, I thank you for your continued support each week as I continue to do this. I thank you for, all the comments and all the feedback. I do appreciate it. And I appreciate all those of you who tune into VSN to watch everybody else. I will be back next week, same time, same place. Looking forward to seeing you all here again. I hope that you were blessed on today. I hope I didn't offend anybody, scare anybody off. But like I said, I'll be back here next week and we will have more to talk about. God bless you and continue to be blessed.